Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Geopolitics at the Land of Origins, where history, power, and geography come together to shape the world we live in today. What if a narrow strip of water, located thousands of kilometers away, could influence the future of an entire nation? Today, global tensions are rising around one of the most critical oil routes on Earth. Every single day, massive ships carry millions of barrels of oil through this choke point, fueling economies across continents. But when that route becomes unstable, the effects are immediate and global. Prices rise, markets react, and uncertainty spreads. For many countries, this is a serious concern. But for Ethiopia, a nation of more than 120 million people without direct access to the sea, it is something far more significant. It is a warning. The modern global economy depends on a small number of strategic maritime routes. These routes act like the arteries of international trade, especially when it comes to energy. When even one of these pathways is threatened, the entire system feels the pressure. Oil prices can spike within days, transportation costs increase, and economies begin to slow down. Countries that have direct access to the sea can respond more quickly. They can adjust their trade routes, secure alternative supplies, and protect their economic stability. But landlocked countries face a very different reality. They depend entirely on their neighbors for access to ports, making them vulnerable to disruptions they cannot control. Ethiopia is one of Africa's fastest-growing nations, with a strategic location in a rapidly expanding economy. Yet it faces a fundamental limitation: it is landlocked. This means that every import and export must pass through another country's infrastructure. It means that access to global markets depends on agreements, stability, and cooperation beyond its borders. Now imagine this situation during a global oil crisis. Fuel becomes more expensive, transportation slows, and the cost of living increases. For Ethiopia, this is not just an economic challenge, it becomes a question of national resilience and long-term security. What makes this moment different is the changing nature of the world itself. Global tensions are increasing, trade routes are becoming less predictable, and countries are beginning to rethink their strategies. The old assumption that access can always be guaranteed is no longer as reliable as it once seemed. For Ethiopia, the message is becoming clearer with each passing year. Relying entirely on external pathways is a risk that must be addressed. This is why discussions about access to the Red Sea are becoming more urgent, more strategic, and more central to the country's future. The Red Sea is not just a geographic feature, it is one of the most important trade corridors in the world. A direct or more secure connection to this route would dramatically change Ethiopia's position. It would mean faster and more reliable access to global markets, reduced transportation costs, and greater economic independence. It would also increase the country's geopolitical influence, giving it a stronger voice in regional and global affairs. In simple terms, access to the Red Sea could transform Ethiopia from a landlocked nation into a major economic force in the region. However, the reality is complex. The region surrounding the Red Sea is one of the most strategically sensitive areas in the world. It involves multiple countries, historical relationships, and competing interests. Any move toward securing access must be handled with care. Diplomacy becomes essential, as every decision carries consequences. Ethiopia must balance its national interests with regional stability, ensuring that its long-term goals do not create short-term tensions. In geopolitics, progress is rarely simple, and success often depends on patience. At a broader level, this situation reflects a global truth. Geography still matters. Access still determines power. And in an increasingly uncertain world, countries are rediscovering the importance of controlling their own economic lifelines. The current tensions affecting global oil routes are not just isolated events, they are reminders of how interconnected and fragile the system can be. Nations that secure their access to trade and resources are better positioned to adapt, grow, and lead. Looking ahead, the direction is becoming clearer. We may see increased diplomatic efforts, new infrastructure investments, and stronger regional negotiations focused on connectivity and access. The pressure is building, the incentives are aligning, and the strategic calculations are changing. Ethiopia is not simply reacting to global events, it is positioning itself for a future where dependence is reduced and control is strengthened. And while the path may be complex, the trajectory suggests that the question is no longer if Ethiopia will move closer to the sea, but how and when. In conclusion, the global oil crisis is more than a temporary disruption. It is a signal that the world is becoming more competitive, more uncertain, and more interconnected than ever before. For Ethiopia, it is a reminder that relying on routes controlled by others carries risks that cannot be ignored. Access is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. And the pursuit of that access is already underway, shaping decisions that could redefine the country's future. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Geopolitics at the Land of Origins, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, stay informed and stay ahead.